Have you ever made a decision when you were angry, afraid, heartbroken, or completely overwhelmed, and later wondered, what the hell was I thinking? What if the problem wasn't the decision? What if it was the state you were in when you made the decision?
Mhm.
Welcome to Regulate and Rise, where regulation is the path to liberation. I'm Liana, founder of the Emancipation Frequency.
And I'm Tracy, founder of Ruha Rising.
I remember a good friend of mine, in all of her beautiful wisdom, told me at one point in my life, do not make a decision when you're in a heightened emotional state. Because literally, that decision you're making, it, the decision that you're making in that state might not be the right decision for you.
Mhm.
So that advice always stuck with me because sometimes we're not actually making a decision because it's right for us. Sometimes we're making a decision because we're desperate for a feeling to stop. Like we're angry, so we want it to end. We want that anger to end. Or we're afraid, so we want to run. Or we're overwhelmed, so we want to quit. And we're hurt, so we want to burn the whole thing down. And that brings us to the question we're exploring this evening. Are you making this decision because it's truly right for you or because you need this feeling to stop? So, Tracy, let's get into it. What happens when we're highly activated or when our emotion or our nervous system is dysregulated and we have all this stuff going on around us and we're letting our emotions control the moment? What happens?
What happens is what you just said your emotions take over, they control the moment. Your emotional part of your brain shuts down, your thinking part, your reasoning part, your rational part. Explore everything, analyze things because you're just stuck in the state of overwhelm. My emotions have taken over. And it can be good emotions or emotions that we call bad or negative. You're
Mm-hmm.
just stuck in a state of, I can't think clearly, I can't make decisions from the thinking place, the thinking part of my brain.
How does that particular state affect our perception in that moment?
You can't see clearly, you can't stop and go, okay, I'm feeling this. Let me look at why I'm feeling that. You can't analyze the situation. You can't look at the big picture. You can't think. Basically, you can't think clearly. You can think, but not clearly.
Right.
So your ability to make decisions is really going to be affected.
It's like we're in that fight or flight mode at that particular point in time. And so,
Mhm.
as we know, when we're dysregulated, clarity goes out the window. And, um,
Mhm.
you
Yeah.
know, we're not being rational, I think, in those moments.
There's that mind body disconnect,
Yeah.
basically. So
How do we lose contact with access to the bigger picture? How does that happen when we're in that state?
if you're just feeling, you're in a feeling state. You can't see all the moving parts. You only feel what you feel. You can't see with your mind's eye, with your brain. You can't think clearly. The bigger picture's not really even an option if you're overwhelmed by what you're feeling in any given moment. You can
Mm-hmm.
only feel that moment. Your body's shut down, so you can't think clearly. thinking, so to
Is it possible for us to be deeply emotional and still make a grounded decision?
Can you repeat that, please? I'm sorry. There were some technical difficulties. I was stuck in that world. So I can't analyze the big picture of what you're saying. So I'm
I,
sorry.
believe me, I understand. No, I was saying, can we be in a deeply emotional state and still make a grounded decision? Because I feel like I've done that before because I felt like I
Mhm,
had to, but I'm not necessarily sure it was the best decision.
mhm. And that can depend on, can you regulate enough to acknowledge what you're feeling and not let that feeling take over. So it's about your awareness. And as you said, it might not be the best decision, you might have made a different decision had you stopped and regulated a little more and a little more and really looked at the situation. So you can make decisions, but you may have made a different decision if you had looked at everything.
Exactly. Because one of the decisions that I made in the heat of the moment was to sell my house. When I moved to California, I let a friend rent my house. And it was actually kind of last minute. And
Mhm,
so, literally, I was taking less in rent than my mortgage actually was because, in my thinking at the time, I didn't think that I was going to be able to find someone who was going to pay what I was asking, for my house. And so
mhm,
when I lived in California, that friend moved out without giving me notice or time to prepare to get someone else in there, which
mhm,
meant I would have had to pay for, my current rent at my place in California and my mortgage. And so I panicked because I was like, what am I supposed to do? I had no
mhm,
clue. And so immediately I went into, I need to sell my house. I need to get rid of it because, again, I wasn't thinking clearly. And I
mhm,
wasn't thinking, yes, you can find someone who is wanting to pay exactly what you're asking and then some,
mhm,
which I discovered after the fact. But in the heat of the moment, I was just trying to, wanting to get rid of it
mhm,
because I wasn't sure how I was going to be able to handle it. And so that was a decision that I regretted because,
mhm,
my house is worth uh, double,
mhm, mhm,
double and a half what it was worth, when I sold it. So that was a decision that I made in the heat of the
mhm,
moment that I don't think was a very good decision. And I should have stepped back so that I could make a bet, do a little research, give myself some time and some grace to find out what the best options were
mhm.
for me instead of sell, sell, sell. So
So,
that was my experience. That was one of my experiences. So a heightened emotional state can actually
mhm,
change the lens through which we interpret our current reality because
mhm,
we're not thinking clearly. We're not we may not necessarily make good decisions because, again, we're in that fight or flight scanning for threat mode, and that doesn't always give you clarity of mind to make good
mhm,
decisions. So emotions are just information. They're not instructions on how to do
mhm.
things or how to make
Right.
decisions. So a lot of times we've been taught to trust our feelings.
Mhm,
And while that's good in one respect, sometimes it's not. because sometimes
Mhm.
our feelings can guide us into decisions, as I just explained, that aren't necessarily good for us. For
Mhm.
example, anger might be telling us when something feels wrong, but
Mhm.
that may not be the case. My thought is that's the evidence. It could be evidence that your nervous system has built up about a given situation, and here it is showing up again, and you're making a decision based on your previous evidence, which may not be true. What do
Mhm.
you think about that?
This is true. Emotions are a starting point, just like a thought can be a starting point. Our feelings, our emotions are a starting point. We have to delve into them a little more to go, okay, I'm angry. I don't like being in this situation, but let me slow myself down. What if I make this decision and I'm angry? Or what if I make this decision, as you were giving the examples earlier, in my anxious state? You were still looking at the reality of the situation, but also you were in your feelings. So it's about finding that balance because you may have made the same decision to sell your house at that time, not knowing if it could get a renter for what you wanted them to pay.
Exactly.
But so you might make the same decision, but if you look into your anxiety a little more, whatever you're feeling at any given moment, you might find some more what ifs. Let me play the
Right.
story all the way out. What if I do
Yeah,
this? Then this
yeah,
might happen, then this. Or what if I go the other way with how I'm feeling now?
exactly. You're right, because I think that we take pieces of the story without examining the whole thing. Because again, we're not thinking about that. We're just thinking about this fight or flight moment, which doesn't always make us the most rational thinkers. And we tend to get caught up in our feelings and
Mhm.
sometimes regret the decisions that we, have made.
Right.
So I got to laugh because in relationships with certain male uh, people in my life, I have gotten anxious when I was younger. When I was
Mhm.
younger,
What? Not
I've
now?
gained, I've gained, I've gained significant wisdom since then. But I used to get anxious because I was so, wanting somebody to choose me. It was like I didn't give the person time to relax into the situation. And I was always hyper alert, like, are they going to text me back? Are they going to, I
Mhm.
texted them 5 minutes ago. They need to text me right now. And I have to laugh at myself because that's literally the way I was at that time. And,
Mhm.
but again, now that I'm emotionally intelligent, I, I
I'm sorry.
am, I handle that in a completely different way.
Mhm.
Uh, so we react on the spur of the moment to the evidence of perhaps we might be rejected or abandoned, or maybe they don't want me. That comes from a
Mhm.
place of low self-worth, and it's not a pretty place, but yes, I was there at one point in my life. um, So, give us some more examples of things like that, like where
Mhm.
people make snap judgments
Mhm.
um, that may not be the best decision for them.
Mhm. Well, as you said, um, you were feeling a certain way, feeling like, going into like survival mode or they rejected me or what have you. So you couldn't see that big picture because there are
Mhm.
other pieces now that you see with more wisdom, more younger age. There's more. that you can see. Maybe their phone died. Maybe, those different things we don't look at. Happen.
We don't think about those
They
things.
yelled at me. My boss yelled at me. Right. They must hate me, or I must be stupid, or, that could be a place of self esteem, or it can be just, I'm in my feelings now. I'm reacting to you yelling at me. That reminds me of when people are mad at me. They yell. That's
Yeah,
what we do when we're mad. And we
yeah.
don't think about, first of all, your boss shouldn't be yelling at you. But it's hard to think rationally and go, okay, maybe they're not having a good day. Maybe they just found out something about funding being cut. Maybe
Hmm.
somebody just quit, or several people just quit, as I've been in situations like that. We don't think about those things because we're stuck in the moment, um,
With our blinders on.
with our blinders on. Or if you have any health conditions and you need to eat at certain times and you don't get to eat, you can get irritable. Speaking for myself, personal example, you can get very irritable. It's like, I need to eat. My body can't function. Your brain literally can shut down if you don't keep yourself on schedule or make sure you're getting enough sleep with any health situation. So we might think somebody's angry or they're being disrespectful because that's what it comes across as, but you're just hangry. You're angry. You need to eat. You need to satisfy that moment so you can think straight.
Hmm.
But we don't. We You might not know people have conditions that cause them to do that. Um, think about, this is a not so common example, but if you've ever run across anyone with Tourette's, you can hear them across the store just cussing up a storm or yelling out inappropriate things. It can get you in all kinds of feelings like, what in the world? Why did they say that to me? If you don't know that that's the condition they have, you're going to react and make decisions from a different place. I
Right.
know people that would say, they shouldn't have said that, and they'll cuss you out in a minute. Well, you didn't stop and think, this person has a condition. They can't help it, truly can't help it.
Hmm.
Um, I
It's
don't know. Others, oh, go ahead.
no, it's almost like, well, we don't really have the capacity sometimes to do that in those moments
Hmm.
where we are,
Right.
hyper vigilant, hyper reactive to a situation, because those emotions can take you from zero to 100, within
Hmm.
0.5 seconds. And
Mm.
so how do we honor what our emotions are telling us without automatically acting on them? How do we do that? Like, what's the
Hmm.
difference between feeling an emotion, acting from the emotion, or and listening what the emotion is trying to tell us?
Feelings are almost, well, they're like urges. They just come upon us. They're there. They happen. We can't stop them. So we're feeling whatever comes up in the moment. You really can't control when a feeling's going to come up. It just happens. So you were asking, feeling
It's
and
like,
emotion.
yeah,
Hmm.
like we get triggered
Yes.
when we feel an emotion. Something triggers us. It could be something sad. It could be something that
Hmm.
makes us mad. It could be something that makes us laugh. Um,
Hmm.
but feeling an emotion is different than acting from the emotion. In what ways? Like, you can feel it, but if you give yourself a chance to
Hmm.
feel it and then, not act from that
Hmm.
emotion, but that requires quite a bit of self restraint and awareness.
Hmm. Because, for example, anger is a very strong feeling. It can be. Anger in itself is not a bad feeling. It just is. It's a feeling. It's a normal feeling that people feel. But what you choose to do with it, that's the action.
Mm-hmm.
So you can choose to react and not stop and think about, why am I feeling this? How did that just get triggered? Um, what can I do with this? How can I calm myself down? So you feel an emotion and then you choose what to do with it, or sometimes you just react and you don't even choose because you're so stuck in that emotional survival state. I got to get rid of this emotion. It's not pleasant.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to feel it anymore. So those are the differences. We feel, we make a choice, or we don't make a choice and we just react without thinking. We just impulsively act on our emotions.
And how do we listen to what that emotion is trying to tell us? Because I know now that I know what I know,
Hmm.
what I know, when I'm confronted with a certain emotion, I'm able usually to stop myself and look at me. Why
Hmm.
am I reacting in this way? What is
Hmm.
this anger or this sadness or this feeling of depression or
Hmm.
anxiety trying to tell me? Why am I feeling this way? And how can I bring myself back to center so that I can, you know, actually
Hmm.
be present in the moment without being reactive to it? How do we
Hmm.
listen to what the emotions are trying to tell us? Are there um, any anything that you recommend in terms of how we can do that?
You have to find a way to pause yourself so that you can look at it, so you can increase your awareness of it. So you can, so for example, you can, okay, I just need to take a pause. Let me take a break. Let me take a walk. If you're in a situation where you can do that, but you got to find some way to pause yourself,
Hmm.
um,
We're gonna
to
we're gonna
stop
get we're gonna get
getting
into
into that.
the
Hmm.
pause in a couple of minutes,
Okay.
but that's very that's a very good idea. And your emotions deserve to be
Hmm.
heard. Don't ever think that they're not, but they
Right.
don't need to be in the driver's seat making the decisions for you,
Hmm.
because that clarity again goes out the window,
Hmm.
because you're only thinking with your blinders on in the moment, reacting to possible triggers
Right.
from past experience.
Hmm.
So I think, what do you think about this? I think it's more about being in the present moment and getting
Hmm.
yourself there somehow in the midst of all that.
Yes, that's what I was alluding to. You got to get be mindful. I'm not in that place right now where I've reacted to this before. These are not the same people. This is not the same situation. You got to stop, pause, come into the present moment, make sure you're not thinking about past hurts, past failures, whatever the case is, and make sure you're not thinking about, this is what's going to happen. Something bad always happens. Find ways to stay in the moment. I feel this. Let me pause. Let me look at it. Let me examine it.
Yeah, because we have a tendency to try to seek immediate relief from whatever the feeling is, because we don't want to feel it. It's like a hot
Hmm.
potato. We want to
Hmm.
get rid of that as soon as possible. For
Hmm.
example, and I've done this before as well,
Hmm.
quitting a job when we're overwhelmed.
Hmm.
I have walked out on jobs, but one in particular, I was there for 10 years and I just decided, okay, that's enough. And you know
Hmm.
what? I didn't think about how I was going to pay my bills. I did not think about anything else but immediate
Hmm.
relief because I was tired.
Mhm.
I was in emotional fatigue from that particular situation, and I just wanted off. I wanted off the
Mhm.
train, and
Mhm.
so I quit.
Mhm.
And yes, it did put me into uh, financial tizzy for a minute, but it also was one of the best decisions I ever made because
Mhm.
I knew I was hanging on to that job, and I
Mhm.
was self abandoning. And you talk about going through nervous system dysregulation,
Mhm.
but it allowed me to free myself and open myself up to new possibilities and new opportunities in my life. So while it was a decision I made in the moment, I think I
Mhm.
had already decided that at a certain point I was going to quit, period.
Mhm.
And I was ready.
Mhm.
But it opened up new pathways for me. So I can't say that the whole thing was bad,
Mhm.
you
Right.
know. Um, but if I had it to do over again, I would have put myself in a different
Mhm.
situation before I made that decision.
Mhm. Well, and I can give a flip side example of that where I did walk off a job one day, but it was after months of getting harassed,
Yeah.
which led to dysregulation, which then led to extremely high blood pressure, dangerous high blood pressure. And I had to go, I need to get out of here. So I was just because of, my past experiences before that and because of what I do, I already knew knew myself enough to know I cannot continue on this path. Um, So my rough part of the decision was I gotta take a serious pay cut in order to stay alive for my child, to stay
Yeah.
healthy, to but I was able to examine all that and go, "Well, what if I do this, then what? What if I stay here, then what'll happen? What if I move on to this job?" So I made sure I had a job in place, and then I literally walked off the job one day, and one of my coworkers said, I'll never forget. She said, "Aren't you gonna put in your notice?" I said, "They're gonna notice I'm not sitting here tomorrow," because I had to get out of there to survive,
Yeah.
literally,
And
physically,
sometimes,
mentally, spiritually, yeah, but
yeah, for real, that's no joke because sometimes you do have to do that. It's life or death, you know. And I know you're like me. I'm not going to sit there and die for anybody. And so, you know, who's to say whether that was a good or a bad decision? You made the decision you needed to make for you, for your life.
and
No,
sometimes, yeah, I'm
no,
sorry.
go ahead.
You gotta do what you need to do in that moment. Sometimes it is an immediate decision like you made. You knew, "I
Hmm.
can't handle that." And looking back, you survived. So
Hmm.
who's to say that wasn't a good decision? You got through it, you learned from it, you I don't know.
It took me
So
to another place in life. I was able to
mhm,
grow, whereas staying there, I was stuck, but I was
mhm,
afraid to let go. Until
mhm,
that moment, I had already decided in my mind that I was going to leave as soon as something else happened, and I
mhm,
did.
mhm,
So, but sometimes, you know, this can look like our tendency to seek immediate relief can look like ending a relationship while we're hurt, or
mhm,
like Tracy and I did, walking out of our jobs. Sometimes sending a text that you'll regret tomorrow.
mhm,
You know, making a financial decision because we're panicking, or
mhm.
saying yes because we're afraid of losing an opportunity when we really mean no.
Right.
Did we give ourselves the opportunity to think about that and give ourselves pause, to give ourselves grace, and you
Mhm,
know work our work our way through the situation?
mhm,
Um, So we really kind of need to think about, am I choosing this particular thing that I'm
Mhm.
doing because it's aligned or because I want the feeling to stop? How can we get
Mhm.
those feelings to stop if that's what we really want to do without sabotaging ourselves?
Mhm.
This is about immediate relief versus long-term alignment.
Mhm.
So what do you think about that? How can we work ourselves through that particular situation? It's
Again,
like,
it comes. Oh, go ahead.
no, no, go ahead.
It comes down to starting with that emotion that we're feeling. Why am I feel? Asking all the who, what, when, where, why, how. How did it happen? What am I feeling? Why am I feeling this way? Uh, who caused this or what situation might have caused this? We got to really dig down and examine. Sometimes we don't have a lot of time to do that before we actually need to make a decision. But the
Right.
more you're able to take that feeling and look at it and talk to it and say, why are you here? Why am I feeling this? What do I need to safely or rationally, not necessarily get away from you, but come to terms with what I'm feeling?
Hmm.
How can I make a decision without feeling like I just want to get rid of this feeling, because those
Right.
can have all we have to think about, what are the consequences? What are the consequences if I make this decision?
Yes.
I'm
And a,
feeling stuck. Yeah. Mhm.
yeah, and a lot of times we can't do that in that dysregulated state.
Mm.
And it's tricky. I'm telling you, it's not easy to do, to come home to yourself in the middle of all that and actually stop yourself
Right.
from um, making that decision, because ultimately, yes, we do want immediate relief
Mhm.
from the feeling, the emotional state that we're in.
Mhm.
And it's challenging. So let's invite the audience. Think about a decision that you're making or considering making right now, and ask yourself, am I activated, which means in an emotionally heightened state?
Mhm.
Am I afraid? Am I angry? Am I resentful? Am I overwhelmed? Am I desperate for relief?
Mhm.
Am I trying to escape a feeling? And I bet you can think of many decisions that you've made in a dysregulated state, in survival mode, that you probably wish you could take back.
Mhm.
But think about this. If I felt completely safe and grounded right now, would I make the same decision? Because ultimately, that's where we want to get to, grounded. We want to make the
Mhm.
decision from a safe and a grounded space, not
Mhm.
from fear or anger or any other emotion. You might not need to change the decision, you might just need to change the state that you're in when you make the decision.
Mhm.
So sometimes the answer, like Tracy and I were talking about earlier, is to leave. For example, if you're in a job and it's affecting your health and your well being, and you know, I equate jobs sometimes to being in an abusive relationship,
Mhm.
because sometimes so many of us experience that, and what
Mhm.
do we do in those moments? when we're being abused, or we feel like we're not heard or seen
Mhm.
or valued. How do we handle that?
Mhm.
Sometimes the job really isn't right for you.
Mhm.
Sometimes the relationship, if it's a relationship, really does need to end.
Mhm.
And sometimes the business needs to change. Sometimes the risk really is worth taking. But the question isn't always, should I do this? It might be, can I make this decision from clarity instead of reactivity? And you really have to be aware of that in those situations so that
Mhm.
you don't make decisions that you're going to regret.
Mhm.
So, like if you're reacting, if you're in a reactive state, you're thinking, I need this to stop now. And so
Mhm.
you're going to make that snap decision. But if you're responding to a situation instead of reacting to it, this is where you want to get to.
Mhm.
You want to, be able to respond without being triggered into
Mhm.
action. So a response to that situation can be, I know something needs to change. Let
Mhm.
me decide how it'll
Mhm.
change, not my emotions, me,
Mhm.
from a grounded place. And regulation doesn't always change the decision. Sometimes it changes the way you make the decision.
Mhm.
So, Tracy, now we're going to get into talking about what you alluded to earlier, which is pausing, the
Mhm.
pause. Let's talk about what it actually means to pause before making a major decision. Does that mean we're just doing nothing? Like, how long do we need to wait? And the what if the situation does genuinely require immediate action? How do we work our way through that?
Again, as I mentioned earlier, you got to first acknowledge what you're feeling. Acknowledge, acknowledge, acknowledge. Identify it. Even if it's confusion, even if it's, I don't really know what I'm feeling right now, which is very unsettling. So you first have to acknowledge your feeling and validate it for yourself because people judge our feelings. The world doesn't like feelings in general. Society is like, you need to stop feeling, you need to just think, you need to just do. No,
Mm-hmm.
feelings are part of us. When we push those away, separate them, that's when we have trouble making decisions. That's when they overwhelm us because we don't learn to say what those feelings are. We don't learn, once we identify them, what does that feel like? You got to know how it feels in your body. You got to know how it affects you. Is it making me tense? Is it making me want to explode? And anger is not the only feeling that makes you feel like you want to explode. Sadness, sometimes happiness. I got so much excitement, I don't know what to do with it. But again, you got to acknowledge and validate for yourself at least, what am I feeling? What is this feeling that just came up? What does it feel like in my body? Where's my awareness? Where am I feeling it? Where is my breathing getting stuck? Um, how is it affecting me in my interactions right now? Am I shutting down? Am I open and still listening? Am I in the present moment? Am I thinking about the past and what's triggering me and reliving moments when I felt this before? Am I worried about, what it's going to lead to? But to get there, you got to always start with that awareness. Identify, validate, what is it doing in my body? Where am I feeling it? Whether it's breathing, body temperature, um, the way your posture is, your gesture, what are you doing? You got to look at yourself and then decide, is it safe for me? Once I figure all that out, is it safe for me to make this response to this situation so that I don't react? The more you examine that feeling and what's underlying it, you can make better decisions or decisions that support what you truly want and need. Um, and it doesn't always happen in a split second, but the more you get used to, and I keep repeating this because we really do need to identify, I feel this. This is what it's doing in my body. This is how it's affecting me in this current situation. What do I need to do to be safe? Do I need space? Do I need to breathe? Do I need to take that break? Do I need to say something calmly once I calm down, something assertively to let that person know how I feel? Um, those
That's
are just examples.
that's interesting because as you were saying that, I'm sitting here thinking, and those are the things we think within zero point 0.5 seconds of
Well,
our reaction. Bam!
that's why I said, well, you got to get to that place where you're used to doing it, that habit
Yeah,
forming, that habit forming. So if you do nothing else to start on your journey, what am I feeling? Period.
right.
And then why am I feeling this? What
Because
does it remind? Yeah, ask those questions.
because sometimes I think we may feel like we're self-abandoning ourselves if we don't react.
Mm-hmm.
You know, maybe we do it to save face sometimes if it's happening in front of a bunch of different people. And it's like,
Mm-hmm.
how do you handle those those
Mm-hmm.
situations?
Mm-hmm.
Um, it can be tricky.
It can, because that brings up other feelings. You already have a basic feeling that you're feeling, and then if other people are involved, that brings up other feelings: embarrassment,
Hmm.
humiliation, shame, guilt, on top of everything you're already feeling, which complicates the situation.
Exactly. So, how do we know when we've moved from that activated, highly emotional state back toward regulation? What do we typically feel in our bodies to know that we're safe to
Mm-hmm.
either give ourselves pause or you know, give ourselves the grace and clarity to make
Mm-hmm.
the decision rather from that
Mm-hmm.
reactive state?
You may not feel a complete sense of calm, but you might still feel that energy charge that came with that emotion, but you'll be able to look at different perspectives. You'll be able to not just feel, you'll notice I'm looking at my surroundings, my environment. I'm opening up to looking at all the perspectives involved or everything that's happening around me, not just inside of me. So you'll know you're more in a state where you're not going to be reactive or as reactive because you're bringing in awareness outside of yourself.
Hmm. What are some of the tools that we can use to pause in those situations? What can we do for ourselves?
You can't, I'm sorry, Kitty Cat wants to join. You can, this is a go-to for me where you just heart breathing. Just put your hand on your heart because that is an immediate way to calm you down, where you can just breathe. You don't have to think about, let me take 5 deep breaths. Just breathe. Just breathe and notice how you're breathing. Another thing you can do, I don't know if I've done this before, but it's like swaddling yourself. You know how you swaddle babies? That calms them down. It feels so good.
Hmm.
Um, you just take one hand and you put it under your armpit, not making those noises that we did when we were little, but just putting it there as a calming sensation. And then you put your other one on your opposite shoulder and you just simply breathe. It just helps contain what you're feeling It helps you focus, calm down. Another thing you can do if you're really feeling still intensely feeling things, you can just take two fingers right behind your ears here and you just stroke, massage straight down, and you just keep doing that. That's a way to calm your vagus nerve, bring it back online so you're not as tense. It centers you, it grounds you. Um, just some simple ways or some different ways to contain what you're feeling so you can calm your body down so that you'll be able to focus outwardly and not just on yourself.
Hmm. Those are excellent things to do in the moment, and sometimes we can even sleep on it.
Hmm.
Instead of making that's hard
Hmm.
because it's always like don't take all that negativity to bed with you because that creates other things. But at least get into a regulated state before you go to sleep. And
Hmm.
then I formed a habit of asking God or divine or whatever it is for you
Hmm.
to speak to me while I sleep, to help me give me the answers.
Hmm.
And I'm telling you, most of the time I will have a dream about it,
Hmm.
and it will always be applicable to whatever the situation that's going on in my life. That's just me.
Hmm.
Um, you can also
Hmm.
take a walk, like
Hmm.
Tracy said, breathe, journal if you like to journal, write it down. You can even go talk to someone that's grounded, like Tracy. Tracy's cool, calm, and collected all the time. And you talk to people when you talk to people that are pretty well regulated and grounded, you can tell because I
Hmm.
think we all have one of those people in our lives who we reach out to that can, give us that, bring us back to center,
Hmm.
basically.
Yeah.
Um, and like Tracy does as well, she deals with movement in her practice.
Hmm.
So you can move your body. That
Hmm.
will help you come back to yourself,
Hmm.
so that you can make a grounded decision.
Hmm.
Um, Wait until the emotional intensity of it drops,
Hmm.
or revisit the decision in a couple of days or something like that. You don't always
Hmm.
have to make the decision like right now in the
Right.
moment. But the thing is to not let anything else outside yourself influence you when
Hmm.
that's going on, and just you know be
Hmm.
at peace as much as possible when you are having to make those important decisions.
Hmm.
Instead of from a reactive place, you do it from a regulated place.
Right.
So pause doesn't necessarily mean avoidance. We're not trying to avoid the situation. We're just
Hmm.
taking time to gain clarity and peace within ourselves as much as possible.
Right.
And being regulated doesn't mean indecision. And taking time to make the decision doesn't make you weak. Sometimes the most powerful thing that we can do is to give ourselves enough space to
Hmm.
hear ourselves think. That's
Right.
really what we need.
Hmm.
So, how do we build self trust within ourselves, Tracy, in order to
Hmm.
pause and make those particular decisions? How do we build? Because self trust is important to us being able to make these decisions
Right.
without being controlled by our emotions.
You again have to find ways. I always come back to you got to find ways to be aware of yourself so that I'm not just because I'm not making this decision, I'm not pleasing this person, or I'm not immediately making this decision, I'm taking a break till I can come back to it rationally. You got to know that that's okay for you. You got to get to a place where you can accept that I need this time, I need this space. It doesn't mean I'm weak, because people will think if you don't meet the challenge and rise to it immediately, you're weak or you're not intelligent enough. That's not what it means. You just have to get to that place where you are okay with yourself. You're aware of what you need when you feel these different things. Do I just need a moment to calm down and pause? Or do I need, as Liana said, do I need to sleep on it overnight? Do I need to give you a timeline and say, let me think about it, consider everything, and get back to you next week or at the end of the week or something? Um, a lot of times when you do that, people will, they don't always understand it, they don't always respect it, but they will respect if you don't ignore what's going on and you say, I am going to deal with that. You don't have to say, once I get my emotions under control. They don't need to know all that. They just need to know I need to sit and think about it. That thinking process involves and includes getting my feelings together, getting in touch with what's going on. So I make the best decision for me, for the group, for my family, for my relationship, whatever the case is. Um,
Amen. And so maybe self trust isn't knowing exactly what to do every
mhm.
time. Maybe self trust is knowing that you don't have to abandon yourself just because you're uncomfortable.
Right.
You know, that's something to really think about.
Mm-hmm.
So let's move into the closing reflection. Tracy has a beautiful
Mm-hmm.
closing reflection for us to help
Mm-hmm.
in these particular situations.
So, as I usually do, if however you're comfortable, sitting, standing, laying down, we can't see you. Do what you need to do to be comfortable. Um, take take a deep breath just to clear your mind. Think about a decision you're facing right now. Maybe it's a relationship. Maybe it's your career, your job. Maybe it's money. Maybe it's the business you're in or trying to start or have been in. Maybe it's the next chapter of your life, which could involve anything: retirement, new relationship, a move, some life change. And then ask, what would I choose to do if I was not afraid of whatever it is I'm thinking about? What would I choose if I didn't need immediate relief? I'm not reacting. I don't need immediate relief. What would you choose? What would I choose if I trusted myself enough to wait for clarity, to make sure I go through what I'm feeling, what I'm thinking, what might be best for me? What would I choose if I trusted all of that and had the clarity to make a decision? And finally, am I making this decision because it's truly right for me or because I need this feeling, whatever it is, to stop? I don't like it. It's uncomfortable. I want it to stop. So the idea is you don't have to have the answer immediately. Sometimes the most powerful decision you can make is to give yourself enough space, as we've been talking about today, to hear your own answer. So just think about, if I allow that space, that time to do what I need with the feeling that came up for me, what would my decision be? And I respond instead of react.
Thank you, Tracy. So remember, your emotions are real and they matter. Your
Mhm.
emotions always matter. Your nervous system, though, is trying to protect you. You have to remember that as well. But you are still the one who gets to choose whether you're going to be reactive or whether you're going to make a decision from a regulated place.
Mhm.
So don't let a temporary emotional state make a permanent decision for you. Regulation isn't about becoming emotionless. Emotions are a normal part of life. It's about
Mhm.
becoming regulated enough to feel everything without letting every feeling run your life.
Yes.
So think about this. Have you ever made a decision from a heightened emotional state that you later saw differently? So if you have, go ahead and put it in the comments and encourage anyone who may need this. This is why Tracy and I do regulate and rise. There's a lot of good information here to help people that you know, because we all go through things like this.
Mhm.
And encourage, you know, I encourage you to share this episode with them. And if you comment, like, and share, that definitely helps Tracy and I soar in terms of the algorithm and people being able to see, regulate, and rise and see the valuable information that we have to offer.
Mhm.
So until next time, keep regulating and keep rising. And remember, regulation is the path to liberation. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.